Speed Freaks! It's here. October has finally begun and it's less than a week left in October. Let's not dwell on that. We have new Orc models. They're contained within this game. It's the biggest box I've ever unboxed. But I'm not gonna... I can't zoom out further without moving the camera. So you just have to deal with the fact that you can't see the entire box. But you'll be able to see everything that's inside it. So let's open this up. What have we got? Much plastic. We have a yellow Warbiker sprue. This is the standard old Warbiker sprue. It's still a good sprue. You can tell that it's old because of the way it's laid out. 3 sets of legs, 3 boys' torsos, and Knob's torso, and knob heads. Power claw, big chopper, wheels, bikes. Yeah, it's all standard warbikey stuff. You get a chain. Don't think there's any rules for it, but there's a chain there. Shooters, big shooters. Down here, and fairings. And your grot that you can stick on the back of one of them, if you so desire. Standard Warbiker stuff. And we have them also in the red plastic, so that obviously once you've assembled this in the red and the yellow, you can play the game straight away. We'll skip over that. We also have terrain. This is actually brown, not black. It might look black on the camera. It's actually a really dark brown. I can tell under my good lighting. And the first thing that strikes me about these is that this is super detailed. This is more detailed than I thought it was going to be, by a long way. We've got tyres. These are tyres from the vehicles. This is a tyre from the Shokkjump Dragster, I think. And I think this is a tyre from the buggy, the Kustom Boosta Blasta. So there's bits from the actual new buggy kits in these piles of scrap. Like, I think some of this is actually just literally like bits of the buggies on their sides. This looks like it's an Imperium thing. We've got cogs and bolts, air intake fans, lots of tubes and gubbins and dials and just everything. Just so much detail going on here. Someone on the terrain team spent a lot of time building this in their 3D software and doing it in such a way as to make it look sensible. We've got some significant mould lines. Can you see? Significant mould lines going down the middle of everything. But it's all in a straight line, so a little bit of time with an X-Acto blade should be able to clear that up. You only need to clear it up on that top side, because that's the bottom. But that only seems to affect the flat lying piece. The mould lines for everything else will be invisible because, as you can see, it's exactly flush with where the separation in the mould would be. So there's no cleanup required on these big bits, aside from where it connects to the sprue. The gates. So you need to clean up the gates, but there will be no mould line cleanup on this, which is great, because I dread having to do that. This looks great. I'm going to look at the other one. Put this on the floor, out of the way. Imperial Aquila. They've clearly looted this from some Imperium convoy. This looks like the grill of the Rocket Truck Squig Buggy, I think. This also looks like the roof of the Rocket Truck Squig Buggy. And yeah, awesome stuff. This is absolutely awesome. Yeah, a lot of this looks like... Are those light bulbs? Those are light bulbs. Orcs use old incandescent light bulbs, apparently. Yeah, definitely a light bulb. There's one broken. Nice detail. I like it. You could slap some rattle can spray paint on these and dry brush them and then throw some pigments over them and call them done. But I think I'm going to end up spending almost as much time, if not possibly more time, painting the terrain than painting the vehicles. Which is saying something. There's so many details on here that sure I could just half-ass it, but I don't want to. Someone spent a lot of time making these and designing these and thinking out how it's all going to work and how everything's going to lay out so that it looks like it is actually a pile of stuff and not just a bunch of embossed plastic. And I don't want to, you know, do it a disservice. Like, look at this hubcap is actually pulled aside and slipped inside of the tyre there. And there's another one over there, matching. Yeah, this is good terrain. I like this. The terrain can stay. Red one. They go faster. It got there sooner. In my brain. This is the Kustom Boosta Blasta, and first thing to note, we have a wheel attached to a fairing. So, if you were planning on using these wheels for a conversion, you can't. Well, you can, but you'd have to cut off this fairing. Which doesn't look easy. That looks like a very non-trivial task. There's also quite a lot of cleanup around those tyres with the mould lines. Tyres typically are a problem. The only Games Workshop kit I had very few problems with the mould lines on tyres was the Goliath rock grinder, because of the way that its tyres kind of did this into each other in the two halves. It was a very clever design that meant there was no mould lines to clean up. It was really good. These ones, no such luck. There's actually quite a lot of mould line going on across a lot of this. A lot of it. So this is going to be a fairly big cleanup job. I was considering doing a time-lapse of me cleaning and assembling these models to stick in the video, but I might not, because it will probably be about half an hour, because I'm only going to do this and this one today. It'll probably be about half an hour each of me just cleaning mould lines, which isn't the most exciting thing. Because yeah, the exhaust pipes have got them. Yeah, the mould lines on this one look pretty bad, to be honest, and the yellow one doesn't look much better from a quick glance. I've already looked at the instructions, but we'll go through those a little bit so we can get an idea of how we can paint this before assembly, because you will want to paint this before assembly. It's got orc crew, it's got a lot of interior details, and there's just a lot of ways that painting this will be a lot easier if you do it before assembly. You should also, in theory, if it's been put together sensibly in the instructions, be able to play it, kind of push fit together, or at least blue tack together, so that you can play with it before you've actually finished assembling. You don't have to put the crew in to play with it, for example, or anything like that. You just basically need the correct footprint and size. But we'll have a look at the instructions and see what that's like. I'll also be evaluating it from a part point of view for conversions, and from what I can do a glance, it looks like it's a pretty good source of parts. Mostly exhausts, lots of exhausts, and that's just always useful for scratch builders. The engine is amazing, actually. It's just a big block engine. I don't know anything about engines. Is this what, two V6s bolted together make a V12? Or W12, or whatever they call it? I don't know. I'm saying they're V6s because they appear to have 3 intakes on one side and 3 intakes on the other, so, or outputs or whatever. And they've got 2 air intakes. So, yes, that's a big engine, but that would be useful for a lot of scratch builders because that's pretty detailed. Not super detailed, I guess something must go on this that I'm not seeing. Oh yeah, these look like the piston heads. Yeah, there's a bunch of those. So yes, those probably go on top. We've got the belt shaft there. Got crew heads here. Do these look compatible? No, they're not compatible with regular boys. So, oh look, this guy's got a replacement spine. Apparently Evil Sons are known for cyborg parts these days. I didn't think that was normally the case, but apparently now it is. What else are the boys going to be compatible with, are the crew going to be compatible with other boys? The answer is no, not remotely. Not even slightly compatible with existing boys kits. The grots look like regular grots, but the faces are slightly different. Faces are more kind of sucking back on their teeth, sucking their lips in. A bit more akin to how a goblin looks in Lord of the Rings than Warhammer, actually. Because in Warhammer they've got protruding lips and big noses. These guys seem to have, I wouldn't call it small noses, their noses are still big, but they're definitely sucking their lips back and being like this, rather than being like this. Yeah, hand mimes for goblin faces. I'm not sure if I like it or not. I will only know once I've got them assembled. But yes, the crew's definitely not compatible with any of the existing boys parts. Sorry to say. They are very much bespoke for this vehicle. That's probably true of all of them, since they're all in a similar style. So whoever sculpted these didn't do it with any intention of the parts being interchangeable or usable with other kits. You can only build this from these parts. I suspect scratch building with these parts will be possible, but I do not think there's any kind of level of interconnectedness between them. So just be aware of that. Your Kustom Boosta Blasta is going to look like a Kustom Boosta Blasta. Which means that once I've finished assembling it, I will get some measurements. Once I've finished assembling it, I will get some measurements, and I will show you some orthographic views of the model so that you can use that as reference for your scratch building efforts. Because I know all us orc players love to convert and loot stuff, and it'll be worth doing. And I'll also get some comparisons with some of the other vehicles I've got. I've got rhinos, chimeras, I've got the Goliath truck as well. I don't have a regular orc truck knocking about because I don't really like them that much. I know they're supposed to be ramshackle, but I just don't like the models. Definitely won't be as big as a battle wagon. Quite a different style to a battle wagon, really. But yeah, I'll do some size comparisons at the end once I've got it assembled. And we'll give you some relatively accurate measurements, you know, ballpark it to near a centimetre, so that you can scratch build your own and get the rough profile correct, because I know some people care about that stuff. Other people don't. Other people just go, as long as it's on the right size base, which these have bases, then it's fine. So that's the Kustom Boosta Blasta. We'll look at the instructions in a minute and go through those and see what we can come up with as an idea. And this is the Shokkjump Dragster. I don't know why I said it like that. The yellow one. This has... This is interesting. You could do a head swap on the driver. This is a standard orc neck hole. There's a tab. Just get rid of this little square tab here. File that down. You could put a different head on this guy, which I might attempt. I've got some with goggles over their eyes. There's some, you get one with goggles in the Warbikers sprue. Good source for a head swap there straight away. So this guy looks, at least his head is compatible, and he looks similarly designed to the Dakkajet pilot. I don't have a spare Dakkajet pilot or Dakkajet cockpit to tell you whether or not he would fit in it, but actually no, I do. The pilot of my Dakkajet is not glued in, so I can actually see if there's any possible way that he would fit in there. And therefore also if you can use the Dakkajet pilot in this. So, flux capacitor. It's got an actual flux capacitor on the interior details. That's how it works. It means it's not just travelling through space, it's travelling through time. Wood paneling underneath. That's an underneath detail that you would probably never notice, but the bottom of it is just wood. That's an interesting detail. They didn't have to put that in at all, but they decided to. It's got a wood bottom. It looks like it goes together relatively easily in terms of painting different bits separately, but it does look like the bonnet here connects up here, which means you'll probably have to paint all of this in one lump. But it doesn't have an engine inside of it. It's got, I think, an air intake somewhere. Probably in 2 bits. Little squig targeter. Smaller than I thought it would be. Actually, this is a trend. These are a lot smaller than I thought they were going to be, based on their base size. Someone did some mock-ups on Reddit, and with how big they thought they were going to be, and I think they got the base size wrong, thus making them look about 25% bigger than they actually were compared to old bit models. These were a lot smaller than I was anticipating. I was trying to find that air intake, wasn't I? Can I find it? Yeah, there it is. This air intake, this is separate, which means I have a really good excuse to use the liquid chrome and chrome that, because shiny and chrome go into Warghala. Yeah, for my Fury Warg, this air intake is going to get fully chromed up with just a little bit of rust in the paint job for this. So that being completely separate, so once I've got the mold line, the seam line gone fully, get that nice and smooth, and then chrome it up with some chrome paint, leave it for a week, and then glue it in. It's going to look good. These goblins, these grots, are more like traditional ones. This suggests to me that they were sculpted by 2 different people. I could be wrong. They never put sculptor credits on anything. They should, in my opinion, so that you can be like, oh, that guy, I know who that is. They did the other stuff. These look like the classic orc range. These Gretchen heads, and given that these seem this stuff, like the fact that this head is compatible with the boys range, and the other ones on the Kustom Boosta Blasta aren't, and these goblin heads, these grot heads, also compatible with the regular grot models. I recognise this socket well, so you can put this head on a regular grot, and then you can put the other grot heads, or the ones from, say, the Dakajet Wasborn Blaster Doobadoob, the plane, that's got some grot heads on, which you could also put on here to, again, get some variation in here. But the Kustom Boosta Blasta is always going to look like a Kustom Boosta Blasta. So whoever sculpted this one, if it's a different person to the Kustom Boosta Blasta, which I suspect it might be, just based on that information, then they've done it with an eye for what orc players want, which is variation. Whereas if someone different has done the Kustom Boosta Blasta, they've done it in a style more akin to how Age of Sigmar Uruks look. And that gels with I think the Megatrike and the Megatrak Scrapjet. They all look like they would probably be compatible with the old orc range, whereas the Rocket Truck Squig Buggy, the Kustom Boosta Blasta, and the other one, the Death Skulls one, the blue one, they all look like their orcs are based on the Oryx, and I think those are sculpted by 2 different people. So that's interesting. I don't know if it's true. If you are the people that sculpted these and you're watching this video, please leave a comment. It would be interesting. Also, do you want to do an interview? That'd be good. I'd like to talk to you about your thoughts on sculpting these guys in a way. That would be cool. Yeah, so we're going to go through the instructions for these and see how we assemble them. I'm not going to take you through the rulebook. If you want to learn how to play Speed Freaks, there's plenty of places you can do that have already had this for probably 2-3 weeks by now, by the time this video goes up, because they get sent stuff early because they do back reps, and painting channels don't seem to get anything early. We have to buy everything, whereas the back rep people get sent it for free. So, you know, cards, big things. I don't think I've got enough space to actually play this game, to be fair. This ain't a coffee table game. This is your terrain boards. It looks like it requires a 6x4 minimum to play, which means I have to pack up my painting table and put the topper on it, which ain't gonna happen. So I'm not gonna get to play it anytime soon. So I'm not worrying about that. But I have looked through the rulebook, and there's something that no one has mentioned, which is that there are actually rules for doing campaigns in this. It's not Gorkamorka levels of campaigns, but there are in fact rules for campaigns, which no one seems to have mentioned online in the places that I've looked. Caveat. Profile cards. Meh. The sample chapter of The Beast Arises by Dan Abnett. Bases! 6 oval bases. These look like... I don't have my ruler with me. I'll tell you on the screen somewhere probably, but I think these are the 75mm long bases. And 2 big oval bases, which I will just do a quick jump cut, and I'll tell you if they're the same size as a Gorkanaut's base. They are not the same size as a Gorkanaut's base. They are not the same size as an Imperial Knight's base. These are, as I suspected originally, Riptide bases. So they are smaller than the person who did the mock-up on Reddit thought they were going to be. Which explains why the models look smaller to me on the sprues. Yeah, smaller than a Gorkanaut base. It's the next size down. So I think that's the same size that the Riptide comes on. Big bag of dice. 1d8 and 10 each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 each of the custom Speed Freaks dice. Sneaky screens for being sneaky behind. And that's just fallen on the floor. We have the assembly guide, which I'll be looking at and coming to some conclusions from. And the rulebook. And I'll just go over the most important bit, which is that if you are jonesing for Gorkamorka, this is not that. This is very much, I think I described it to someone after watching one of the bat reps, it's Mad Max. It's a Mad Max version of X-Wing. It's very similar in terms of how it feels to play. So you've got your 4 different scenarios. Quite frankly, the most interesting one to me is Race to the Horizon, where whenever someone reaches this board section gets taken away, everything on it dies, and you shove everything back this way to add a new one. And then you keep doing that. So you've got to speed and keep going fast while also fighting. That one seems to me like the most interesting one. Grand Smash, meh, it's just a big fight. And Trash Their Stuff is a case of one person's trying to find the other section while the defender does a thing. But the interesting bit is in additional rules. In additional rules, you've got custom jobs. And if you're playing a campaign, page 22, after each battle, each player can send one of their vehicles to be upgraded. Players who did not win can pick a vehicle and draw a custom job card. Players who won can pick a vehicle and draw 2 custom job cards and pick which one they wish to keep. These models keep these custom jobs for any subsequent games in the campaign. A model cannot have more than 3 custom jobs. If a model explodes as described in its data card, any custom jobs it had are lost as the vehicle has to be replaced with a new one before the next battle. So there's also additional rules for each of the clans. Not that interesting. But then we've got this section. The campaign's rules is 2 pages, and that is it. For it is mostly just a suggestion. Right? It's a suggestion. Custom jobs is the only expansion you have, but it's, you know, interesting enough. And then, you know, they suggest ways to do a narrative campaign, a ladder, a racing championship, and a linear campaign, and how you can expand your speed mob. It basically all comes down to house ruler. But I was more interested in this. I was going to make my own campaign rules for it, if there weren't any, and now I can. And here we have some pictures. There's that one. There's that one. See, these look more like the Aurochs, whereas, and so do these ones. These ones don't look as compatible, and this one's definitely not compatible with the old boys kits. I'm interested to see if you can take this guy and just have him on foot. I'm betting you can, which gives you another option for a war boss on foot. And yeah, these guys are the same as the Kustom Boosta Blasta ones. They're definitely not going to be compatible with regular boys. Maybe this guy's head will be, but based on how they've done the others, it's not. But this guy looks like he's just a regular guy, like it could come straight out of the Dakajet right there. So yeah, interesting to see that it seems like there's been different sculptures for different vehicles. And here we have the card stuff. This is all your gubbins. Literally, it's called gubbins in the rules. This is your movement stuff, so these are if you're doing your moves. These are some numbers. It's pretty much standard Games Workshop cardstocks, pretty good stuff. Initiative counter. I'm going to put that back in the box because it's really big. So, going through the instructions, I'm going to skip over the war bikes. And we're going to see what conclusions we can draw with regards to assembling God, our buggies. Let's put the... I'm making a big mess and a noise. There's my 2 screws that I want. And everything else can go back in the box for the time being. I mean, I will assemble these at some point because I want the war bikes. There we go. Right, so let's put everything aside. I've got my war buggy screws out. And the box game is over there. So here's my war buggy screws. And here's our instructions. So straight off. Let's get these out of the way actually and flatten this out. And then just jiggle the camera about a bit. I'll be right back. And I'm gonna assemble at least one of them. I'm gonna into sub-assemblies, and then I'll be like, it'll be a time lapse, and it'll be going really fast. Alright, it's been an immense amount of time. I'm not going to get this video up for Saturday, I don't think. This yellow plastic, Bayek. Same plastic as Zarbags gets, same problem as Zarbags gets. The mould lines are ridiculous. They're so prominent on every single part. It was amazing how prominent they were. I'm just waiting for this other grot to dry, but I don't need to talk about him because he's not very interesting. Neither is this other grot. Indeed, what is interesting is that I now have this in all of parts that it will be in when I'm painting it. So let's go through them. Just do my glue up. Right. So let's take it apart, shall we? So, as you may have seen on the time lapse, this is the main body. Glued the bonnet down, glued in the little axles there. These will need tidying up because these wheels don't sit all the way on the axle. And I've glued the pylons for the spoiler on to the back as well because they have this gap here which needs to be filled. So yeah, done that, but also this doesn't interfere with the rest of the paint job. The back part, so assembly order wise, you would put that in. If you want to make this even easier, remove the little nubs that are here, and then this will go in, because I think these have been pushed back a little bit while they dried, making the gap a little bit worse, but I don't think you'll notice because there'll be wheels in the way. So this bit that goes on, then the seat, which I see I've actually glued the back onto the seat, fits in like so. Driver's feet, you would want these painted. All of this stuff, this is like the order that you paint it and then assemble it. Then the dash with the wheel attached, steering wheel attached, so it doesn't get in the way of anything that way. Now that we've got this assembled, these spiky bits, spiky wheels, can all be painted separately and glued on whenever you want, right at the end probably. The air intake, I've sanded this down nice and smooth, so I can't feel the line there at all. You can see one, but you should be able to. Once the primer's on, it should be nice and smooth. Had to make sure this was sanded down under here, so that it sits flat. It's actually not still a bit gummy from the glue, but otherwise it doesn't fit into that socket particularly easily. It does now, and I'm gonna paint that in chrome when I do it. But this can go on the end, this can go on at the end. These armour plates that attach to the exhausts can go on at the end. The rocket launcher can go on at the end. The roll bars can go on at the end. This spoiler can go on at the end. So after you've done this bit, you've got a couple of choices. Paint the teleporter generator, which fits in the back there, like so. But you could also just paint the insides. You can do the rest of it up in any order you want, really, because it's all pretty easy to assemble from this point on. You've got the exhausts, which you may want to put on at the same time as doing the dash, so that you can maybe use some PVA glue to gap fill between the pipes that connect everything up there. You can paint all the wheels separately. Note that the wheels do not stay on their own. This is really shallow, so you have to glue them on. So be sure that you're done with the wheel when you glue them on. I had to sand these down a lot to get them all nice and smooth because they are supposed to be slicks. So I had sanded these down nice and smooth for all the wheels. I also sanded the spikes down because they were starting to really hurt me when I was putting it together. From this point, you can put the driver in if you want. I did note, I checked, probably saw it in the time lapse, that regular Orc Boy heads do fit on this guy. So you can head swap him as much as you want. Dakajet Pilot won't fit, but he just kind of slides in, and then his hand does sit, if this is glued in, if I hold this in place, his hand does sit nice and flush with the steering wheel in there, so you don't have to worry about gluing the steering wheel to his hand. You won't be able to see that it's not actually glued together. So just slot him in there with a bit of plastic cement on his bum and he should be fine. Glue his head on afterwards is my advice. So once he's in the car, then put his head on. It should just make things a bit easier. Also make it easier to paint his head. And that's largely it. The gun with the squig, you can paint that separately, put it on after the exhausts. There you go. It's slightly hard to get on when the exhausts are happy to fall off like they currently are, but also it kind of pushes this bit away because it clamps it in this corner, pushes it away here, so you'll want this glued in place nice and solid before trying to put this on. The crew, so the grot, I haven't glued the heads on because I always do the heads separately. They just kind of plonk in there and you've got a little bit of leeway in how you position them. The hanger-on, he plugs into this socket here, so put him on right at the end, last bit you want to put on. So get your teleporter generator, your shock generator. Should fit in there nice. Is that in correctly? No, it's not. There you go, it should just sit, it shouldn't be wedged or anything. So that just sits there. I've left this bit off so I can paint it separately. You can put that on, and then you can put your spoiler on if you want. But I would actually advise, before putting the spoiler on, put these chain links on, these reinforcement chains, which should go from these. They kind of cover up where a gate is, where a gate was located. The reason I've not put them on is because I want to paint this part separately, and these attached to that, but they just fit in there really easily. So a small dab of plastic cement and the chains will fit no problem. Like that, and you can see they actually cover up one of the gates that you have to clean up. But if you don't clean that up, they won't sit flush. As you can see, it doesn't really want to stay together. Yes, so I'm just going to leave these off for the spinny bit, for the spinny video, and I'll probably leave off the grot, and the rest of it I'll just kind of glue tack together. Once you've got this on, you've got the head on the orc here, you can put the roll cage in. Now, the roll cage fits in here, and I think that gap's pretty much inevitable. That's here. But what I'll do is I'll probably green stuff over it, then paint over the green stuff once it's assembled. Got your roll cage. Put the wheels on right at the end. Also put the spoiler on. Probably one of the last pieces to go on would be the spoiler. Is that the right way around? That doesn't look the right way around. That's not the right way around. You can put the spoiler on the opposite way around in either way round. It is omnidirectional. And then sling your wheels on right at the end. Remember, you'll have to glue them in order to keep them in place. It's definitely smaller than expected. I'm just going to take that out for now. So there it is. That is your Shokkjump Dragster. I'll be doing the Kustom Boosta Blasta after this, once I've cleaned up. This is all the bits that I will be painting it in. And if I do a painting tutorial on this, comment below if you want one. Then, I'll do like a section of the video detailing how to do the wheels, a section detailing how to do the body, a section detailing how to do the exhausts and other governsy bits like that. The teleporter bit will get its own section, but a lot of it will get covered by previous sections, so that only the special bits for that will be covered in the tutorial. Alright, that one was faster than the other one. The mold lines didn't seem quite as bad, which suggests that the yellow plastic is a bad batch of plastic pellets that GW are working their way through at the moment. Avoid the yellow plastic. So this guy is a bit of an interesting one. Obviously, you've watched me build it. You, for example, know that this is not attached. He is not attached. This seat is attached. These sides are not attached, and therefore neither is the engine. These are all of the bits that I have the model. It's a lot more bits that I've got this one in than the yellow one. It's an order of operations thing, really, and access. This is a lot more of an open model, with so a lot more of it is actually interior. I've still got some bits that will need sanding and gap filling, for example, down the middle of the gun here, the rivet cannon. Down the middle of the engines here on these air intakes, we'll probably need a little bit of another sand, gap fill and a sand in order to make it smooth enough to paint and not see a gap. There'll probably always be a gap on the inside though, but Ow. I hurt myself a lot more on this one than the yellow one. It's a much spikier model. Screw these wheels in particular. They're in two halves, and there's a mold line running down the centre of each half. And it's such an uneven surface that you just... You can't clean it easily. It's a nightmare. It's horrible cleaning those. You saw in the time-lapse I gave up and I just was sanding them with my polishing sheet in the hopes to just, get the worst of them off the surface. I'm probably going to fill them up with pigment to make it look like sand stuck in there, in order to cover that up. I've got a lot more pieces in bits, for example the piston heads for all of on the engine. I'm going to paint those separately because that way I can paint the engine one colour, I can paint the piston heads, say like red or a different colour, and it'll be much easier if I do that separate. You can glue them on if you want it all to be one colour, or if you think it will be easier to do it that way, go for it. I've left the little guard off the gun because again I think that would be easier for me to just paint and then glue on afterwards. The heads for these boys don't appear to be compatible with regular Orky heads. Let's just have a check. Maybe. Yeah, okay. You can get a different Orc head. Oops. Zoom in. You can get a different Orc head on these guys from the boys' kits. Whether it looks appropriate or not is up to you. I don't think it will, because these guys are a different looking kind of Orc, but yeah, they'll fit. An Orc boy head will fit on there. So that's something. The only thing they're really compatible with is head swaps. Unless there's some secret dimensions on some other Orc vehicles that I don't own that make them compatible with them, then yeah, there's no cross compatibility here. You can make each of the buggies with the kits and nothing else, which is slightly grumpy making, but it's the way it is. I haven't attached the engine to this bit just to make it easier to paint the engine. Get around the sides. I'm going to have to do some gap filling. Ooh, they got stuck to each other. I have to do some sanding and gap filling on these exhaust pipes once they're fully dry. I'm not going to do 360 videos, I've decided. There's not going to be 360 videos at the end of this because they're in too many bits and it's too hard for me to hold them all together. They won't survive one turn on the 360 turntable. They'll just collapse. So you're going to have to put up with just watching me having built them. So let's go through the order that I will be assembling and painting this. So, painting the engine block, all of its bits. I'll probably do all of the engine block first, all of the exhaust pipes first, the piston heads. Get all of that done, because that's all going to be similar kind of colours. Those worky bits, probably also the gearing in the back here and underneath. So, you don't have to paint underneath, you won't be able to see it. Then we work on to the bodywork. This is interesting. This bit you could paint up as trim. So you could actually paint this whole section a different colour to all the rest of the bodywork. As like an accent colour, you could paint it, you could chrome it, for example. The front armour plate, the only bit of this I would do in a bodywork colour would actually be this bit, the jaw, and this bit I would do in a metallic, because it's a radiator. At least it's supposed to be a radiator. I don't think it would ever be functional as anything. And then you've got the shocks here, which again I would probably do at the same time as the engine. We'll ignore that. Yeah, I've got the shocks which I'll do the same time as the engine over here. Bodywork is these bits which I can do the bodywork and then put... Is this the right one? It's not the right one. This is the right one. These fairings on here, paint these separately from the bodywork, probably in a contrasting colour. And then, well, I can paint the bodywork, then mask the bodywork off with tape, and then paint the wheels with an airbrush or just by hand. And then glue these bits in once the wheels have been painted and also treated. So these bits will probably be one of the last bits to go on. These little wheel arch bits. Paint the crew separately. I left out this little bit, which is supposed to be that way around. The rivets, so that I can paint them. Yeah, don't glue those in if you want to paint them. It'll be easier to paint them outside. Of the little hopper at the back here. Didn't glue the gun on, so that I had access to this arm, which you'll cover up a lot of. I also didn't glue the gun onto its little mount so that I could paint the mount separately more easily. Again, there's a lot of so that I can paint this more easily. You could paint it fully assembled if you wanted, just with the roof off and the crew out, but I feel like it's going to make life a hell of a lot easier if you paint it in this many bits, which is a bazillion bits. So, do the engine assembly, and then glue that on, like so, after you've also painted all of this. Again, I wouldn't paint this bit in bodywork colour because it's chassis. The chassis is nicely separate on this kit, I like that. Unlike the yellow boy, whose chassis would all be bodywork colour, this guy's chassis would all be metallics, or rust, or primer, whatever. Wouldn't be bodywork colour, wouldn't be painted. Once you've got this on, you then need to put the dasher in. And once the dash is in, right, it actually would be a good idea to get the driver in there and paint the driver next, because it's kind of tricky to get him in. Indeed, it's actually tricky. It'd be a good idea to do all of this at the same time, assembly wise, Come on. Because, there we go. Because you kind of have to bend this back to get the end of the steering wheel in there. But then once all of this is together, you're pretty much set. If you get the, where's the grot with the big stick, the big lever. Where does he go? I kind of skipped him in the instructions. He's on the outside, right? Yeah, he's on the outside. No, he's inside leaning out. So this guy... I don't know where he goes. I skipped him in the instructions somehow. There he is. It's at the bottom here. Oh, I see. That is supposed to fit on here. Like this. So, I'm not sure if he will be able to be fitted in. But once you've got this much assembled, and you can put the front on whenever you want, that's not an issue. As long as you put the front on before you try and put the wheels on, because you need these little shocks here to attach to that. And you can put the exhaust on pretty much any time you want as well. Then, paint the bodywork all in individual bits, separately from each other. Then you can assemble the bodywork, because there's these little holes here that the bodywork wants to hook into. This would be much easier if it was all glued together. Oops. And these doors, I guess they're doors, they're hinged, fit into this groove here, which makes it impossible to get this on if you have the sides on first. So then get your bodywork on. Ejector seat. That wasn't intentional. If he was glued in, it wouldn't be a problem. Where did he go? I'm sure he'll show up. No, really, where did he go? I can't find him. I'm sure he'll show up. He's probably just bounced behind something and I can't see where it is in the dark. Anyway, get your bodywork on and get your grot in there with your handle, because he's kind of leaning out the window like that. So you've got to have him on and your driver painted before you put the roof on. You've also got the other grot who's hanging off the back here, who you might be able to get in after you put the roof on, but it would be easier to do it before. Make sure, all of this should be painted at this point. Get your roof on. If you can use your hands anymore. Come on. There we go. Now, don't put a camo pattern or anything over this. If you've done it well, this gap you can fill with probably PVA glue. Or a little bit of milliput, and just smooth it down with your thumb. And you'll get yourself a nice smooth join across there. And then fix it up with paint. I think you can get a smooth join, no problem. Get the roof on, then everything else goes together pretty much in order. So paint your turret guy, paint your turret ring, which I've left off to paint separately because it'll just be easier. Just give it one coat of chrome, for example. Then you can get your turret boy in there. Paint this mounting for the gun separately to the gun, and stick them together, although that's actually quite a good friction fit there. And then you've got yourself your turret. Obviously stick the front of your gun on, stick the front of your car on, stick the shocks on, and then you can stick these last wheels on. Stick the exhausts on at any point you want. I've left the heads of all of the Orc Boys separate, and you can swap them out for different heads if you want. These little chains are supposed to attach the dash here to the roof. My camera card filled up, so I'm having to record this a little bit later after emptying 128 gigabytes worth of footage. So, where was I? Yes, I'm not going to be attaching, where have they gone? These chains. These tiny chains. They're supposed to connect at this end, the flat end, onto the dashboard here, and the curved end towards the pipes. I don't think it needs it, and it will mess with my order of operations in painting. So I'm just not gonna use them. Other than that, assembly is pretty straightforward to the end here. The biggest concern I have is this gap here. So here are both of the vehicles. Sorry. Most of the bits for the yellow one are in this bag here. The yellow one's actually slightly longer than the red one. The Dragster's slightly longer than the Boosta Blasta, but the Boosta Blasta is about a whole inch taller once you've got the gunner in there and all of his stuff. So that's it. If you're wondering what these things were that were showing up during the time lapse, these are cushioned finishing pads or cloths. Basically, it's really fine grit, wet or dry paper. So this is like 2400. Mostly I use the 1500, but I've got all the way up to 12,000 grit. And they're supposed to be for polishing. These were samples that I've got off eBay. There might be a link in the description for where you can get some. But these were just sample sets. You're supposed to get these in big sheets for industrial purposes. This was a sample set, came with one of each type of grit, and they're amazing for cleanup because they're soft. They're basically sandpaper on a cloth backing, and what that means is that they're really, really good for polishing because they don't create strong grooves in anything. So I use them for polishing up anything where, say, I've used a file which does create damaging marks. I also use it for when I've been using my X-Acto blade because that can actually, it'll smooth out the roundness of a surface. And anywhere I use the emery board, this is just one for nails, dirt cheap these are. This will create scratches, and then I polish them out with this. But this is much faster at removing material than these are. So yeah, eBay, there may be a link in the description if I find somewhere where you can buy these. Otherwise, I believe it was polishing cloths or polishing pads. There's a good search term to try and find them. That's it. This was a long one. I'm in the middle of editing it right now and it's about an hour long, so kudos if you've made it this far. Yeah, I like it. I like these buggies. I'm mostly looking forward to the Death Skulls one, the blue one, I can't remember the name of it, and the Megatrack Scrapjet. Those are the two of the other upcoming ones that I'm most interested in, but I cannot afford to buy them until, who knows, January maybe? It's going to be a while. I've spent all my money now. All that Patreon money that I've saved up. And all that YouTube revenue that I've saved up in order to buy all this stuff. So there we go, if you like this video, there will be a tutorial on one of these two vehicles. It might actually be the Dragster in the end, because I fancy painting that more than this one. Then yeah, that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks, probably, because I've got to finish my alt kill team, then paint this. But I may do it in stages, so it may just be like painting tyres. And yeah, I mentioned it earlier in the video, how I was probably going to do it. It'll be separate videos for each bit. So there we go. Click that like button. Share the video with your friends. Say, hey look, you can watch a guy ping an orc into the air while he's trying to build his thing and drop things on the floor multiple times. That's it, yeah. You can subscribe there for more content. Check out my Patreon there. Every dollar helps. It keeps me in models and allows me to actually, you know, paint things. And there's another video there. I don't know what it is. YouTube decides what that is. My social media's there. Come follow me and check me out and all that stuff. There we go. Thanks for checking in. I hope you've had a good Saturday. Bye.